Hello, my name is Daniel Zaya Joseph, and I am going to be presenting on a research project that I titled Black Belt Breath Control and Anxiety Management. So, the research question here is: could martial arts sports such as jiu-jitsu be utilized as treatment for anxiety and PTSD via breath control techniques inherently exercised during these activities? So, the implications here are that there is a substantial amount of psychophysiological control that is gained by practitioners of jiu-jitsu and other martial arts that are relevant to basically universally to all humans in the sense of it allows regulation of our nervous system by activation of the parasympathetic response to counter anxiety, to drop cortisol levels, and could be used to treat anxiety disorders specifically such as PTSD, and in veterans is the community that I would like to focus on later. So the hypothesis is that black belt level practitioners of jiu-jitsu exhibit high rates of psychophysiological control as a result of their experience within the sport when compared to non-practitioners. And that would, I should also state that that will be a statistically significant delta comparatively with a non-practitioner community. So we should see a reduced amount of anxiety and perhaps also a very strong ability to engage the parasympathetic response. So a little bit of review on the literature here. We know that slow breathing techniques are understood to help reduce stress and anxiety through stimulation of the parasympathetic response within the nervous system. And this seems to be a fairly common knowledge around either the medical community, the psychology community, even when it comes to coaching, sports, musicians, just broadly throughout society, we're very familiar with breathing techniques as a way of calming the body down. Many research articles will be referenced in this study, which provide neurophysiological and sociophysiological implications inducing relaxation through calm breath. And so what I want to discuss are the actual biomarkers, the quantifiable aspects of breath control and anxiety reduction that have been scientifically proven in peer-reviewed journals, rather than just saying experientially or qualitatively that it helps, actually providing the very concrete examples of how our bodies respond to deep diaphragmatic breath. Anxiety disorders, including PTSD, may be treatable through sporting activities such as jiu-jitsu strictly as a result of the capabilities being trained that correlate with slow, controlled breath when under duress. And later on, I'll discuss the implications of flooding or emotional overwhelm if somebody feels as if a re-traumatization occurs. So it's going to be important to monitor clients who are engaging in such activities. But the object here is to, through a form of exposure therapy, walk them through their breath and help them gain tools through these sports that they can then take off the mats, out of the gym, and into their lives to help create an overall increase in well-being and anxiety reduction. So a little bit of the review here. Dr. Marusek published in 2020 an article regarding the reduction in stress through martial arts-based therapy. And you can see these other authors here. Blomquist discusses psychological benefits of jiu-jitsu on at-risk youth when it comes to self-control, self-regulation. Farrow in 2020 and their group of researchers look at the implications of jiu-jitsu and the rates of reduction in what they call cognitive and somatic anxiety. So one is more experiential, one exists more in the head and the mind through thoughts and whatnot. And then the somatic anxiety exists with heart rate and actual visceral feeling of stress and anxiety overall. Ma et al. In 2017 explained diaphragmatic breathing and how it helps to trigger relaxation and lower stress, as exemplified through cortisol levels. And I should emphasize here the diaphragmatic breath is the lower belly breathing rather than the upper chest shallow breaths that is pretty normative when activating the sympathetic response and the fight-flight stimulation. And then the last research here, Boyadzieva and Kayan further discuss breath control to provide psychophysiological regulation of the nervous system as well. And all of these articles are referenced later on, or they're placed in the references section. Dawson et al. Examined slow breath strategies for reducing cognitive and somatic stress levels as related, again, through cortisol levels. Percivalle and that group consider mood states and emotional distress regulation in terms of deep breathing and heart rate. So here we see a more qualitative aspect. They do have quantitative measures, but we do see how this affects overall mood state and the well-being of the client. And then Girath et al. 2015 explored the use of breathing techniques as a primary means of controlling anxiety. So all of this put together definitely emphasizes that there's a huge benefit if someone can be coached into self-regulation. So the methods and data for my research project, it is a quasi-experimental study. I don't have an actual control group where I'm taking somebody and putting them into jiu-jitsu and seeing how that affects them. This is more of just examining two different groups. It'll involve self-reporting measures using a 1 to 10 Likert scale for statistically relevant quantitative analysis, along with open-ended interview questions to help provide qualitative data as well. So it'll be about half and half, qualitative, numerically based questions in the questionnaire, and then followed by some open-ended discussion questions for the client to discuss, or the participant to discuss breath control and anxiety. So as I said before, there are two groups that are going to be studied here. It's a correlational study comparing black belt level practitioners of jiu-jitsu, which tend to have over a decade of experience, and a non-practitioner group entirely. So I should say that I have 32 participants within each group. So 32 black belts and 32 non-jiu-jitsu practitioners. The data will be collected through an interview proctored 41 question survey. So rather than emailing the survey out, I will be actually proctoring it myself to help provide any context. So hypothetical data presentation and findings. So here we have, this was when my study had only 16 participants in each group. And I placed, or I analyzed the numbers, and basically what you can see here is that the non-black belt practitioners, which are designated by the orange part of the graph, they have, so they start off a high adrenaline, high anxiety event. Could be a sporting competition, it could be a conflict, anything that gets their nervous system activated, in which their breath is necessitated as a means of self-regulation. They start off with high anxiety, they drop in anxiety. This is before, during, and after the event. So before the event, anticipatory anxiety is high. Once the event initiates, their anxiety level diminishes because their body is in motion, or they are getting their feelings out. They're actively participating in whatever they need to in order to resolve the event or address the event. And then immediately after the event, they actually have a spike of anxiety. And this is it's combined experientially, so cognitive and somatic. I haven't really differentiated the two as starkly as other researchers have. So this is sort of a combined overall expression of anxiety and what they feel, an activated state. The black belts, on the other hand, in the blue bar below, you can see that while they also start with a high level of anxiety, much lower than the non-practitioners, but still high comparatively to their own, experience. Once they start their event, the high adrenaline event, so in this case, it would probably be a match, a jiu-jitsu match competition. It's high level with somebody they don't know, they're not familiar with. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. Once they start the event, also their anxiety diminishes, so the during part. And then after, they have a consistently diminished level of anxiety. And so what I basically have assessed here is that while normatively we experience anxiety and we have sort of a residual level of cortisol and adrenaline in our body, adrenaline has about a 10 to 20 minute half-life in our bloodstream. You can see that with black belts, they have tremendous amounts of psychophysiological control because they're able to offline the production of adrenaline, and their body just, even during the match, they're starting to relax. There's a sense of relaxation that they can carry on to where even once the match is complete, they're not ruminating. they're not stuck in a high stimulated, high activated event or drive, that goes away. It's offline. And that is the gift that I would like to help give to anybody who struggles with anxiety or PTSD, basically the gift of self-regulation that is learned as adults through this sport. So if anybody missed that opportunity in their developmental years as children, they're able to get that as adults. It's going to take quite a bit of effort, but it is something that can be taught. So future research, essentially, I want to look into more quantifiable biomarker analysis, because this study, again, as I said, is non-experimental, and it's quasi-experimental. And the other weak part of this is it's self-disclosure or self-reporting on a Likert scale, and that's very subjective. So to maintain objectivity, I want to look at biomarkers such as with heart rate variability and blood oxygen saturation. Later on, a study involving cortisol, so saliva sampling at those different time points before, during, and after high adrenaline events. And then one day, brain scan studies, functional MRIs, PET scans, things of that sort. The other aspect to note here, the shortcoming in my study is all 32 black belts are male. The non-black belt participants were 16 female, 16 male, and the non-practitioner category. But I had a difficult time getting access to black belt females in jiu-jitsu. I do have several I am engaging now, and I'm hoping through those relationships, I'll be able to spread the word to the female community so that I can do either an all-female study or a 50-50 mix, again, so male and female. But females are basically underrepresented or not represented in the study. So that is a weakness that I must address in further studies. So the conclusion here is that a statistically significant difference exists regarding breath control as a means of anxiety reduction comparing jiu-jitsu black belts and non-practitioners. Psychological treatment of clients who suffer from anxiety disorders, such as PTSD, may benefit from participating in this sport. And again, here, careful consideration must occur to prevent overwhelm or emotional flooding that induces re-traumatization when introducing such clients to jiu-jitsu. And here is a list of the references. That is the conclusion of my research. Thank you.